Hey guys, this is Russell.
This is Chris.
This is Pete.
This is Steve. You're listening to Pixel FM. Thanks for coming back, guys. We had our first episode just a couple of weeks ago. We covered E3. We know it was a long one, but we want to thank those that listened to it and kind of suffered through us talking about it. It was very late. We started to ramble on a little bit, but we definitely appreciate it. So thanks for coming back. This week, definitely an interesting week. We had a couple of different news stories. Nothing that's too shocking outside of the Xbox One reversal, and we're certainly going to get into that. But first, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. And I know Last of Us is kind of the big game at this moment. It's something that we've all played, at least the ones of us that are going to play it. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, to get out of the way, the other things we've been playing. So I'll let you guys go first. Whoever wants to go, you got the stage.
I mean, I'm pretty much on the same thing until I beat it. I'm almost done with Terraria, and I just finished The Last of Us, so there's really not much left for me to be playing right now.
I'm on my normal, working through The Last of Us. Played a lot of the multiplayer last week, and this week finished the single player on a couple of marathon nights, and my usual 2K and Madden fix.
As the only guy who hasn't played The Last of Us and will have the whole thing spoiled, I played some Animal Crossing, and I really like the Fallout. Still working on that from 2 weeks ago. Aside from that, I've been really busy.
Yeah, for me, I actually took the time to play a couple of different things. I finished Last of Us pretty early on. I finished it, I think, the Monday after it came out. So for me, I decided to pick up a few games, and I picked up Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS. Played a little bit of it, didn't play too much. I got a little bit frustrated with it. It's the only time I think I've ever had a Nintendo game glitch out on me. The opening level, just something happened, and the key to the door just didn't appear. I rebooted the game, and it was there. So I did play a little bit of it. It's a good game. I think, Russell, you played a little bit of it.
Oh, yeah, I played pretty much 75% of the game. I'm almost done with it, but I've loved every part of Luigi's Mansion. I mean, there's a decent amount of stuff you can do in it. There's a lot of collectibles that you have to grab, a lot of hidden items. But, I mean, it's a great Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, I think it's great that they ended up doing a sequel to it. I know a lot of people were upset that it went onto the 3DS, but it's probably where it belongs. I think at this point, that might have been a tough sell to do a $60 Luigi game. If you even look at what they're doing with the new Luigi Brothers, that's an add-on. That's not even a retail game. I think they actually are going to sell it at retail, but it's a reduced price, I think.
$30.
Yeah, it's not a big thing. So Luigi's Mansion, I will get back into it. Eventually, I will finish it. I do want to finish it. The reason why I haven't finished it is because of Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is... I don't know how to describe it, and it's just one of those things where I have to keep checking if I'm high, like every 15 seconds, because this game is absolutely just bananas from start to finish. So my name in the game is Big Bo, and that is my tribute to the wonderful best friend in Binary Domain, one of my favorite games of the past few years, and I am the mayor of a town called Sandwich. Cause
Sandwiches are yummy.
And the best part is my assistant, whose name I can't remember, Elizabeth or Eliza or something, she was about ready to call me the mayor, but she got interrupted and called me the Mayo of Sandwich. And I just think that just was great. So I've been keeping a diary as I play Animal Crossing of just the weird shit that has been happening to me in this game. My first observation is Tom Nook is a dick. That guy is a fucking hostage-taking piece of shit, money-laundering scumbag. I hope there's a part of the game where he gets busted for fraud or something, and you just see him, like, he's got his overcoat over his hands. You can tell his wrists are cuffed together, and they're, like, pulling computers out of his office. He's just in shame, and his family's crying, and, his kids are wondering what's happening to Daddy, because I just want to see this guy suffer. I am the mayor of this fucking town, and he is making me pay $30,000 to buy a house. I'm the fucking mayor.
He gave you a house.
But he made me sleep in a fumigation tent until I repaid his loan at like that Western Sky where you're paying like 590% interest on this fucking loan. This thing took me days to pay off. You know how many pears I had to shake out of a tree to be able to get into my fucking house? He wanted $10,000 to get the house. Then I had to pay off another $30,000, and now I'm in the hole again for like $100,000 so I can expand my house a little bit because one of the guys is selling a pinball machine. I'm gonna buy that fucking thing. It's absolute extortion, without a doubt. This is an extortion sim. It's just, it's insane. So here are the other things. So they let you make a town song. Now, I decided I'm just going to screw around with this for a few minutes. This thing sounds like the noise that you hear when someone's about to die in a horror movie. And they also let me change the town flag, and I changed it to a carpet sample. I don't know why. I also made my house just look like a carpet sample. But here are just a few of the things. I don't want to dwell too long on this, but just a few of the observations. So this cat girl comes up to me and wants me to come over to her house. Or, I'm sorry, come over to my house. This is after I just got the house. I don't have any money because Tom Nook has all of it, so I can't put anything in the house. I don't have a bed or a table or anything. So she comes in my house, looks around, it's empty. Totally fucking empty. She's like, this is a really nice house, Big Bo. I really like your house. I'm like, bitch, it's empty. And
She saw a ball of yarn in the corner.
yeah, exactly. So next thing is I visited a pig who I walk into his house, and it looks like a classroom, an elementary school classroom. There's a chalkboard up on the wall and
4 desks. I have him too.
4
He's in my
desks.
town.
After I visited his house and told him I liked it, he handed me a knife. That was my thank you gift. He gave me a knife.
That
was the
kind
murder
of
weapon.
weird. That's
Yeah, it's...
he didn't hand me. He gave me like a piece of furniture. I think he gave me an armoire.
Yeah, and then after I left the house, I bumped into somebody else, and she's like, oh, I'm moving in a month. I'm like, so I picked the option, oh, that's sad, please don't. And then she's like, oh, okay, no problem. If you want me to stay, I'll stay. What kind of totalitarian dictatorship do I have, this iron fist I rule the town of Sandwich with?
Well, to be fair, you're the only human there. You're the owner of all these animals. You know, if the dog's gonna run away, you say bad dog. The dog's gonna stay.
Well,
It's Zoo World.
the cat girl, she asked me for a piece of fruit, so I gave her one because I carry pears in my pocket. She then ate it, ravenously, right in front of me, and then just stared me cold in the eyes without breaking contact. And I'm just, this game is so fucking weird. And the last thing I have is the cat girl. There's another cat girl. There's 4 cat women in this town. She gave me a thank you gift, and it was a stray cat. And I'm curious if this was an unwanted child. She's just she's coming to the mayor to dispose of it. She's just here, have my cat that I keep in my pocket.
You're the baby daddy.
Pocket cats.
It's nuts. But I will say this: if you have a 3DS, pick the game up. It's really neat. The problem I have with the game, though, is because it is a real clock. When they say come back tomorrow, they quite literally mean come back tomorrow. You can't do a lot in this game. You're maybe able to play it for a half hour to an hour tops, and then you have to give it up and move on to something else.
Or change your time in the clock.
No, not even that. I mean, I guess theoretically you could just quit out and.
Yep.
But the thing that I'm curious about is, I guess you can change the date.
You have to change the date.
Yeah, you have to change the date, and it's.
I had a customer come in today, and he noticed that every time it was raining in real life, it would be raining on the game. Is that something that...
Yeah, where we live, it's been raining a lot this past week. I have my game set up so 7 p.m. Is 10 a.m. in the game. And it's been raining every night this week in the game. I didn't play it today, and it actually didn't. It rained a little bit today, but it isn't right now. I'm curious if I turn the game on right now if it would be clear or not.
In my game before I left, it was raining.
Yeah.
It was. How does that tie in? I never heard about that, but it makes a lot of sense.
He was just talking to me about it and just basically saying he didn't know if it was basically a coincidence or if it was, because we.
I know that I had to connect Street Pass, and I'm curious if that takes GPS data. I assume weather would be tied into all that or something like that. Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't take my 3DS out of the house with me, so I'll never use Street Pass, but I just turn it on just for whatever reason, just to kind of mess around with it. The only other thing I've been playing just to, before we get into Last of Us is I downloaded the demo for Project X Zone. I didn't pick up the game just because I have so much stuff to play, but I really like it. It's kind of like a Fire Emblem mixed with sort of a fighting game. There's actually controls. I thought it was just button mashing until I actually looked at the screen and realized, I should be hitting these buttons in order. But the game is really neat. I have to imagine eventually it'll drag on. The battle that they give you in the demo is pretty long. It was like an hour long. You can go and download it on the 3DS eShop. I don't know if that's indicative of the whole game or if the battles will be shorter or this is really the length. This is really the length, and it takes you an hour to go through this. Either this game is really short or really, really long.
I mean, I picked up Project Cross Zone and
Yeah, Cross Zone, yeah, whatever.
It's an X.
It's a railroad crossing. I picked it up. I haven't had a chance to open it yet. I grabbed the collector's edition, and I heard it's an over the top, just turn-based fighter. I can't wait to play it.
It's beautiful to look at. The only thing that I wish you could do is I wish you could set your own teams. I understand that would make the story a little bit more difficult, but I mean, you get Ken and Ryu, and you get some Tekken characters, and just characters I didn't even recognize, to be honest with you. And I think I saw maybe Mega Man and Zero in there somewhere. They give you a wide variety in the demo. You end up having like 12 different teams on the field that during the demo. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna be the way it is in the game. You know, I haven't played the full game. I don't know how it works. I'm sure you go through the whole roster throughout the game, you know, unless there's a way to unless you're really just going through with a team or not. But probably shouldn't even be talking about it because I've never played the full game. But it looks great. If you have a 3DS, here's some really good stuff right now. You know, Luigi's Mansion, Animal Crossing, Project Cross Zone should all be on your radar for purchases, definitely.
Yeah.
So before we get into The Last of Us, is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
If we're going to be talking about future games, Rogue Legacy just came out for the PC. It is a roguelike where you play a character and then the descendants of that character in a procedurally created dungeon. And it looks very awesome, and I'll be playing it and have a nice recap for everybody, that all 6 of us that listens to this after I'm done in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm hoping to play the NCAA football demo for the PlayStation 3. I gotta download that myself.
Yeah, this is, like I said the other day to you, this is usually my year where I get NCAA instead of Madden. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I'm not a big college football. I'm not even a big football fan in general, but I still buy the football games just because it's fun to play. But I don't know what they've done anything to really get me back in, because NCAA is a game where I do the not franchise mode, the dynasty mode. And that's why I really like to do on that.
Last year's Madden, they changed up a lot, and I believe all the improvements from Madden will be implemented into NCAA this year, because NCAA was not what Madden was last year. So hopefully they'll have some of those changes in there. Yeah, I got to give that a try.
All right, so I guess we're going to jump into Last of Us. So for those of you listening, I'm going to timestamp this in the description below. We are going to go full-blown spoilers on The Last of Us. So if you haven't finished the game, I suggest you just stop listening. And if you go to the description of this video, you're able to skip to the next part by just clicking on that little number next to it. So I'll give you one last chance, and then we're just going to go into it. Ellie is actually Elena from Uncharted, and Joel is Drake's father-in-law, and everybody is actually dead, and it takes place in inside the mind of a mentally challenged kid looking through a snow globe as a fake sitcom on television about a hospital plays out.
Yep, exactly.
So The Last of Us, I was the first one to finish it, and I had nobody to talk to about it because Russell and Chris weren't done with it. I think I'll let you guys go first because I think you like it a lot more than I do. So I mean, if you guys want to talk about, you know, what you liked, you know, what you didn't like.
Finishing it last night and listening to a lot of reviews beforehand, hopefully, you know, less spoilerish reviews that I've read or seen on YouTube and stuff like that. It is a game that you really have to digest it even more after finishing it, because the end of the game is really, I don't know, I'd hate to say anticlimactic, but I didn't see it coming. I didn't really see all the, you know, a lot of people said it was very, I'm sorry.
Anticlimactic.
Very, very, you could see what was coming.
Yeah, I saw every plot twist coming.
See, I didn't see anything,
The
really.
only thing I didn't see coming, and I guess I should have, is when Joel gets injured when he falls out of the building.
Yeah.
I should have seen that coming because I knew that they were going to make you play as her eventually.
The character bond
actually,
was getting strong.
Naughty Dog at one point said you're not going to play as Ellie, so I didn't see that coming. I mean, I know that they weren't lying about it, but you know, if they tell you you're not going to play as her, I didn't expect to play as her. And you know, being a big Uncharted fan, when they did this when Joel falls and he gets the rebar through his side,
it's the desert moment.
Yeah, it's the desert moment in Uncharted. And like when you come through the door, and in Uncharted 3 when Marlowe shoots Sully.
This is also an Uncharted 3 spoiler.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry.
Maybe we should have noted that before you ruined 2 games for me.
It's a year and a half old. If you haven't beat it, you're dumb.
Oh, also, King Kong dies.
But, it's just that moment of, oh shit, my character just died. And that scene was really, really good.
I think I would have liked it better if he did die. As predictable as that would have been, I think that would have been a more interesting story. And there's a parallel I really want to make right now, but I can't because it spoils a game you haven't played that I know you're going to play eventually. So for those out there that have, if you think about what I'm thinking about, if you can kind of contemplate what I'm talking about, you'll get the connection immediately. And that's kind of what I thought they were going to go with. I'm kind of glad they didn't, but at the same time, I think it would have been a more interesting story. But at the same time, if they did that, where she was left by herself, then immediately everybody would have been calling for a sequel. Because right now everybody's like, you know what? I don't think we need a sequel. Naughty Dog already said that we're not making a sequel.
I don't think they can make a sequel to it because at Joel's age, if you jump into the future, Joel's going to be 60 because Joel has to be at least 50 years old in this game. So, not to say that he's over the hill, but he's getting there.
I mean, he gets beat up. I mean, pretty good in that game. Everybody gets, beaten pretty good. There's a scene in Ellie where she's in the restaurant where she gets, the shit kicked out of her. She's getting punched in the face. That was one thing. We talked about it before with realism of this game. I'm sorry. I know she's really tough, and they turned her into a killer in that game. But, I mean, this is a full-grown man just beating her in the face, and she's still conscious.
She also got hit by a pipe or a crowbar or something.
Yeah,
right in the face.
She gets hit in the face with something, and she's still there. And I don't know. It's one of those things that kind of just breaks it for me a little bit.
But the whole game was great, beginning to end. In all honesty, I knew Tess would die. So that really wasn't a big shock to me. How she died, they could have killed off a couple of the characters a little bit more, like in the game, more brutally than they kind of did. They did not half-ass it because they killed the characters off and they made them seem tough doing it. But Joel really never expresses anything towards Tess, and they've obviously been together for a long time.
Yeah, you don't know anything about their previous relationship.
Yes, exactly. I mean, they've obviously been together for a long time because people know them as a group, as a team. And when they don't see them together, when Joel's brother doesn't see Tess, he knows something's up. I
assume this will be their, and I know I won't remember the name. Uncharted did that visual novel where it fills in kind of before Uncharted. You remember that? They released on PlayStation Network. It was kind of like a comic book that flipped through.
The Eye of Indra.
Yeah, that. I assume this will be something they could do with that.
Oh, I love it.
What happens before The Last of Us.
If you bought the collector's edition, there was a comic book in there.
Yep.
And it says
American
to be continued
Dreams.
right at the end of it.
Oh, there actually
5-issue
there actually is. I think Dark Horse Comics is doing or something like that. I don't know if that does it. If that does it, that's great. Go out and check that out.
When it starts, you learn about Ellie when she's younger, and you learn about her friends and everything.
Okay. She mentions her friend at the end.
About Riley right at the end.
Yeah, at the end of the game.
It actually explains who Riley is.
Yeah, I'm the one that I didn't get the collector's edition, so I didn't see any of that stuff. So I'll have to check it out on my own. But I hope they kind of fill in the gaps. It's one of those things where I think that we're so accustomed to having every single minute detail of a story told to us that when things are left to the unknown, we kind of complain and get a little bit up in arms, which is strange because I didn't think the story was all that great. From a storytelling perspective, it's a very run-of-the-mill, general, bland kind of story. It feels so great because it's put up against the normal video game story, which, let's be honest, is pretty bad.
Yeah.
There's people calling this the Citizen Kane of gaming. I'm sorry, but it's not. If you want to start comparing this game to works of literature and film, it doesn't compare. This is not The Godfather. This is not The Departed. This is not one of those great masterpieces of storytelling. It's a very paint-by-numbers story of a post-apocalyptic world, and it just would have been nice if they could have gotten more of that human element. Obviously, a bond forms between Joel and Ellie, but so much is left to just that blank screen that says winter or summer or fall, and it's just, you can tell that they get along. There's that scene where they high-five, and it's like all of a sudden he's gone from her being a nuisance to you're in this together and I view you as an equal. How did we get to that point?
She's never an equal to him. She is his daughter. He replaces his daughter with her throughout the process of the game, and I really enjoyed it. I think Steve's wrong. I mean, I don't agree that I don't agree that it's the Citizen Kane of gaming. It's not. But the story was great, and these guys have their own individual stories aside, like Bill. Bill was a really, really good character, and he's only in the game for about 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how long you take him, or how long it takes you to get through it. But Bill is, he's a hardcore guy. He's a survivalist. And you find out that I think he's supposed to be gay, because he has, Frank, his partner, ends up killing himself in the house. And I don't know, did you guys find the letter?
No, I missed a lot of the collectibles. There were a few that I got, but for the most part, I just kind of wanted to finish the game.
I found the letter, but I never knew you could actually hand it to Bill.
You find this letter in Frank's bedroom, and it's to Bill, and it basically says, "Bill, I hate you. You're a dick. You have your own ways, and you're setting them, and that's why I'm leaving you." He stole the battery out of the truck that was for the getaway, and he was going to leave Bill in the town. And you can actually hand it to Bill, and Bill sits there and he reads it, and he goes, "Well, that's the way you feel. Fuck you," and he crumples it up and throws it on the ground. And the funny thing is, you can actually pick up the note again, and then you look in your inventory, and there's two notes: the regular note and the crumpled up note. I really like what they did with the game. It was a great story.
They did a few interesting things. One of the problems I ran into is I think all of us at some point experienced some type of bug with the game. Mine is that the optional conversations didn't pop up. There's a scene in the game where Ellie finds an arcade cabinet, and I know that there's a conversation because it was shown in a review of the game, and I specifically skipped that section because I wanted to experience it for myself. I kept dragging her over to this arcade cabinet, and the little triangle icon just never popped up. Nothing ever popped up. And I know that there were more instances of that because I heard other people talk about it, and I was like, why did that? And nothing triggered. I think I only maybe got like 3 or 4 of them to work. The giraffe one worked, and the one about the military school worked, and those are the only 2 I really remember outside of ones. What?
Petting the horse.
Yeah, he rubs the horse butt. Yeah, I thought that was kind of strange, but you know what? If there was a bear in front of me, I'd rub his butt and rub his belly. Absolutely, yeah.
Right before he eats you, rub his butt.
I wish there would be a zoo that would let me touch a bear. Like, I would sign any paperwork they want. I just want to go and touch a bear. That's all I want. I mean, I'm not asking for much. I will happily sign my life away.
I get the video of Steve getting eaten by the bear after he touches it.
That's fine. If that's the way I go out, that's the way I go out.
That'll be up on Pixel FM podcast eventually.
Yeah.
Drake.
Nolan North.
Oh. Speaking of Nolan North, Troy Baker was great. You can't tell it's him. You definitely can't, because when we discussed before with BioShock Infinite in our first podcast, I really wanted to play the game because I thought it was Nolan North. Found out it wasn't. It doesn't discourage me from playing it, but it's not a game I ran out to play like I did with The Line.
Oh, Spec Ops: The Line, yeah.
Ops.
That was a good story. That was a pretty good story. They did some interesting things with that. That's a game where I don't think enough people played it. I think people wrote it off as just a generic third-person shooter, and in many ways it is. But that's a game where it's essentially BioShock Infinite. Maybe the gameplay isn't great, but the story is something you should experience. And Spec Ops is not long. I think maybe 5 hours, 6 hours tops.
Yeah, I was playing through it because we got it free, and I definitely plan on beating that game. After I re-download it because 4.45 killed my console.
Yeah. And thankfully they did fix that. They put a new patch out, yeah. I haven't had my PlayStation 3 on in a few days, so I haven't had to download it, but I know that the day I finished Last of Us, that was the day where they were worried about everybody bricking systems, so I didn't finish The Last of Us until I think maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I was worried about early in the morning having something happen to it. Storytelling is the big portion of this game. We've already touched on it a little bit, and I started thinking about games that have great stories that could stand on their own. I think this will be one that ends up doing that by default, just because so many people have gone nuts over the story and the content of the story and how well it's written. And it is written well. The dialogue is really good, and it kind of reminds me of kind of Kevin Smith. And I know that sounds weird because he's a comedy writer, but dialogue is what he does best. He is able to capture real conversations between people, mostly because these are probably conversations he's had with real people and he just remembers them and writes them down. And it's tough when you're putting yourself in a situation where obviously none of us have been in that situation where it's a world gone to shit. The writers of the game certainly haven't been in that situation, but they're able to capture the kind of human emotion and that connection in those conversations, and I wish there were more games that did that. The game that jumps out to me at the most, and it didn't do it well, but it did it enough where it kind of shone as a nice example of it, was L.A. Noire, when you're driving around in the car with your partner and you kind of have those casual back and forths. The only problem I didn't like with that is that the main character Cole was such a kind of a he wanted to be the hero, he wanted to be the good guy. Ultimately, you find out he's not later on in that game, but it was just always he would shoot everything down, and it wouldn't be any kind of like back and forth. People are going to complain and they're going to bitch about their wives or their family or their job or whatever, and they would be like, oh, my wife's giving me this, or the job's really tough this week, and be like, yep, well, I've never had that problem. I think more games need to have that natural flow, that natural conversation, especially open world games, because you're spending so much time in a car with somebody else. And with Last of Us, you're on horseback with somebody else, or you're just walking through these sections where there aren't any enemies with somebody else. And there are multiple opportunities to have that, and I'm really glad that they're kind of constantly talking to each other, because you would be. There are situations where, yeah, you're going to be in total silence, you want to attract attention, but for the most part, you're going to talk to somebody, you're going insane. If you're just wandering around this entire country, you start in Boston and end up in Salt Lake City, and you're not talking to anybody, it's kind of nuts. So I'm really glad that they did that.
It was such a beautiful game at times. I really had to finish it by tonight, and just so we could talk about it more. And I kind of regret doing it the way I did, just kind of going through the game. And I still checked all the corners. I didn't get all the collectibles, obviously. That's just not going to happen. And I really like just stopping and looking around and just waiting, just saying to myself, I got to stop and look at this beautiful world they created. Because there's points when you get to Wyoming and you're looking around and they're in Jackson, and you look up from the town and you see the mountains, and it's all done in real time. This isn't just a painted background. These guys made this world, and it's gorgeous.
It's interesting to see what they're going to do with next gen hardware.
Oh, I can't wait to see what Naughty Dog has.
You look at the people that push the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 to their limits, and obviously this is a game that wouldn't happen on the Xbox 360.
No.
It would have to be multiple discs, if that. I don't even think it would be possible. Look at LA Noire, and that was 3 discs, and 4 discs.
I think it was 4.
Yeah, I mean, there are games that really push the limit, and Naughty Dog is one of those studios that they have the talent to really kind of just grab the horse by the reins and make something last. I think David Cage at Quantic Dream does that. I think the guys at Rockstar are capable of it, but I think that they like being able to fill their space up with other things.
I think GTA 5 is really going to show what they can do with this hardware. I mean, granted, it's going to be their last game on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, but this game's really going to take the cake. I think it really will. It'll show you what the best possibilities are for at least the 360.
Yeah, I think it's a true shame that Team Bondi is dissolved, because I think that technology from LA Noire could benefit a lot of games, and we're probably never going to see it again. I know they're working on Horror of the Orient, but they haven't said if there's any type of facial capture or performance capture going on with that game. Nobody has seen anything except for environmental screenshots from that game. To be honest with you, I don't think it's ever going to come out. I don't think they're going to have funding. I think that it's a good story. It's like, hey, these guys that were kind of used and abused by this company, or they made a great game. This is their opportunity to make another great game. It's a good story, but I don't think it's ever going to happen, because I think they've already said that they don't have any plans of this game coming out before like 2016 or 2017. So, I mean, there are games that are far off in the distance. Cyberpunk's a ways away, but at least we know that it's actually being worked on.
A lot of that issue is just time. Naughty Dog took almost 5 years to make The Last of Us. It was one of the biggest secrets in gaming when they announced it towards the end of Uncharted 3's production. And the companies aren't given that amount of time. And that's one thing Sony really excels at, is if you need time to make a game, make a game. Like Journey. I think Journey took 2 years to make a $15 download game. No other company in gaming will allow that amount of time. And Sony paid for that game. It's not like they made the game and were like, here, can you put this out? These guys were paid from Sony. So, time is a lot of things, and a lot of companies don't have time. They just aren't given time.
I think that'll probably wrap it up for Last of Us, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about.
We got to talk about the end of the game.
Okay.
I mean,
there's definitely some...
a quick side note before we get to the end of the game. Just the fact that they weren't completely zombies in the game. They were considered infected because of the spores.
It's the same thing.
They're always infected.
But still.
They were turning... granted, the infected were zombies. Steve's right about that. Infected as in infected from 28 days. That kind of infected. But when they got to the stage of being...
The Sandra Bullock movie?
Yeah. 28 days later, sorry. When they get to the point of being the clickers, yes, they're no longer zombies. Those guys are, brainless, merciless killers that go on sound only. The clickers were amazing. They're horrifying when they get close to you if they're, when they're getting ready to attack.
That was the only aspect of the sound design that stood out, just that noise.
Yep.
And I've heard that noise in other things. I think there's got to be a type of animal that makes it, maybe like a snake or something like that.
Bats.
I've heard that clicking.
Echolocation.
Yeah, but I've heard that specific kind of trope before of something using that sonar, but making that noise, like that kind of guttural throat.
Yeah, it's
clicking.
interesting because I'm pretty sure they actually used people to make this sound. I don't think it was something they took.
Yeah,
from
I mean,
something. You can tell it's like a throaty thing. It's not a mechanical sound. It's not something they made. I mean, obviously they altered someone's voice to get to that point, but the clicking was actually, I think, coming from a human throat.
Yeah, I know enough about sound design and Foley work that they definitely used real. It wasn't a synthesizer in a computer. They actually took the time to use either animals or people or something like that. And I think that it always shows. That comes across. It kind of sounds like something that could exist. It's not artificial.
Yeah, the combat was good. I don't know what you guys thought about the controls.
It was fine.
A
lot of people complained, but I thought it was fine.
See, the thing is they're not military trained. I mean, Joel's been doing this for a long time, so he's really tough. But he also, even when he runs around, you hear in his breath, and when he's got the gun out and he's getting ready to attack or shoot people, he's nervous and he shakes a little bit. And you can actually upgrade that so it comes down. But at the beginning of the game, you're shaky, you're waving and stuff, and they do a good job of showing the evolution of Joel and Ellie together throughout the game in the different parts.
The one thing that you want to talk about that with the non-military training, when you play as Ellie and she has that rifle that only she has, it's a one-shot kill. Obviously, that should be a pretty powerful rifle. It doesn't seem to have any recoil at all. It doesn't seem to kick her back, really.
Yeah.
She's able to reload that thing immediately and get another shot off.
Well, the reload time is a little slow, but yeah, it should push her away more. Maybe they could have done some more animations with that. Because it isn't a scoped weapon, you could have showed her coming back and feeling it more because, she's probably 85 pounds, if that. She's, 14-year-old girl.
So, yeah, you want to get into the ending. The ending to me was a good way to end it. They put an article up on Kotaku earlier this week about the original ending where she completely believes the lie, which essentially confirms to me that she doesn't. And that's the way I took from it. That's what I took from it, is she doesn't believe him one bit, but she's willing to buy the lie. And it kind of becomes a case of who shot Liberty Valance, where it's, when legend was when history becomes fact, or when legend becomes fact, print the legend, or something like. I know I'm butchering the quote, but it's basically it becomes a shared lie, one that we're all willing to believe in because we don't want to face the truth. And I think that's what you're seeing, because you have to imagine that word will get out that there was this slaughter with the Fireflies, so eventually people are going to figure this out, and it's one of those things where that's going to happen later on in the game. Despite the fact that the game is done, that world, in our minds, it continues. Things happen. So when you think about that, it's one of those things where this comes out eventually, and either that affects her, that affects him, something. I have to imagine that his brother would be quite upset about that, his wife would be quite upset about that, and Joel would have to, probably atone for what he did. He wanted to protect her. He didn't want her to, become this experiment.
Yeah, that goes back right to the beginning of the game where his daughter dies in his arms, and there's a lot of foreshadowing there for that. But I think from the point where Steve was talking about with the when Ellie kills the leader of the one group of hunters in the restaurant, I think from that point on, I think she even realizes what Joel is finally taking on the role of, she's not replacing my daughter, but, I can treat her like my daughter. She's obviously not Sarah. She's not, she would be 32 because she was probably 12 in the beginning of the game. So she would be, much older, but, missing that and having Joel always be very standoffish with her about it and then accepting it. And he calls her, he grabs in her arms and, says baby girl, which is what he calls his daughter at the beginning of the game. So being a parent from that point on, to me, it was Joel is acting father, and it was nice. It was heartfelt. It was good for me because Joel shows more of humanity because he's lost a lot over 20 years and, without his daughter and without anybody else in his life because eventually you find out that, his brother and him split up years ago and then they reconnect and it's all, it's all good because it's the past. And I'm sure one of them thought the other one was dead, whether or not he got to, when he got to Wyoming, whether or not Tommy was alive or not was a question. It wasn't known that Tommy was going to be there at all. But you get to the end of the game, and to me, I want to believe that she believes him because even if she doesn't, it's she has to show him that she's going to believe him because she, from the beginning, when she was being protected by Joel, wants him to be, she wants him to be more fatherly towards him because he is her protector. Period. He's a protector. That's his role. And then when he takes the father role, I think it becomes more, comfortable for him. But she also becomes a little bit standoffish sometimes too, because when you get into Utah, she's very concerned for herself. She doesn't really know what the future holds. Does she know they're going to kill her when they put her under because Joel's knocked out? You don't really know. So they might even told her, like, you might not wake up. This is the end. That's something that's left out, and I didn't like that. I think that was something they could have. You find a couple records from Marlena. I don't know if you guys found them.
Yep.
There's a couple recorders. One says that she knows that what they're going to have to do and that she okayed it, and there's another one that says she won't kill the smuggler, who is Joel, and that's something she can't do because he brought her from one side of the country to the other in some place that shouldn't have happened.
There's that point in the game right before the draft section where she's kind of not paying attention and just kind of off in her own world. That's another one of those things where it's that passage of time where obviously she starts developing those feelings, but it's not told. It's not shown. It's not told. Well, that's writing 101. You have to show people things. You can't just expect them to buy this all of a sudden that she's had this change of heart and she's not gung-ho, because she's gung-ho the entire game. And all of a sudden she's not, and that's bad storytelling.
Yeah, because it switches. He goes to gung-ho. He's like, oh, this is going to be, something good for humanity, because I think that's what he thinks. I think he thinks it's going to save humanity.
Especially because the final part of that game is really short.
It is quick. Yeah,
it's rushed all together.
Well, the biggest problem, personally, I couldn't tell if she believed Joel or if she didn't believe Joel, just because she was pretty much, when everything happened, she was just waking up. She had no clue what was going on. She didn't even realize that Joel saved him. She was woke up.
She doesn't wake up until the car. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's either she's trying to understand what happened or she's trying to see if he's lying to her. Yeah. I couldn't really tell, if she wanted to just know what went on or not.
My hope is that she believes him because, you believe your father when he says something to you. Father's voice is law, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. I love the end of the game. Someone asked me, he's like, is there going to be a sequel? And it's like, no, you can't make a sequel, really. Because, like I said, he's going to be too old, blah, whatever. But I think they could do a different story maybe in the world.
Or
maybe
a prequel, probably.
Yeah, maybe a prequel.
But the ending was tied off pretty well, I thought.
Yeah,
at least.
Oh yeah.
I don't think they ever revisit it. I think this is it. I think it's one and done.
It would be nice to see another game, another series. Maybe you got to see Uncharted 4.
Yeah, anybody that doesn't think that they're working on Uncharted 4 is naive. Yeah. That's what they're working on.
At least another Uncharted. Yeah. You might not see another set of 3 for the PlayStation 4, but I think you got to start off with one, and then they're going to do another game like this, where it's a secret game.
I think you see Uncharted, and then there's a backdoor into that game that creates your next protagonist for the spin-off of Uncharted. You do that in television shows all the time, or all of a sudden these characters show up for a couple episodes, and then next season they have their own show. Yeah. I think that's what you see. I think that the smart thing would be to avoid as much Indiana Jones as possible and not do Elena and Drake's son becomes this thing, because you saw that with young Indiana Jones. They're already, towing that line a lot of just being such a big ripoff of Indiana Jones that I think they need to avoid that as much as possible. I think there's a lot in the Uncharted world that you could do. I just think that, Drake and Elena, they deserve their we're going to go off into the sunset moment. Yeah, they deserve to have their happy ending, because so many games end on such a downer that now it's cliche to end on a down note, which is why I'm really glad that nobody dies at the end of The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption kicked it off, where everybody's, protagonists just die now. Everybody dies in games now. And it's one of those things where you always see that people are afraid to kill off main characters, but when you do it, and you do it right, it works. And I brought it up last week, and now I'm actually finally caught up. I've been watching Game of Thrones. That's a show that's not afraid to kill off main characters. People fucking drop like flies in that game. But it gives you the opportunity as a writer of this show, and obviously they're following the book, so they don't have much leeway, but George R.R. Martin, who wrote the books, gave himself this leeway that now I can deal with the consequences of this happening. Because when you're writing something and you're creating a character, you have those thoughts in the back of your mind, what if he just died halfway through the book? what would the rest of this book be? You know, it would be everybody picking up the pieces, and sometimes that's the more interesting story to tell.
Yeah, they could have did it in Last of Us too. They could have let Joel die.
I think it would have been better if he did.
University.
I think I would have liked it better, but I think it's weird. They did the right thing by not having him die, but I think I would have liked it better if he did.
I don't think the ending would have been as powerful as it was.
You would have had to have come up with something completely different.
Yeah, no, you couldn't have went the way it went.
It would have become them hunting her.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what you would have seen. But I think that's gonna wrap up our Last of Us talk. We went on quite a bit about it. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll be back in just a second. We're gonna dive into news. Stay tuned, guys. Alright guys, welcome back. We're going to get into news, and the biggest news, the one we have to get out of the way first, going back to some of the stuff we talked about last week, the biggest news of the week, I found all of my 3DS and DS games. They were wedged in between two boxes in my living room. I didn't play any of them, but it gave me the license to buy new ones. So, that's the biggest news. I think this pretty much wraps up news. Nothing else happened.
Yeah, it was a really boring week.
Yeah. Not a boring week at all. Well, this past week was a boring week. The week before was not, because Microsoft came out and announced that they are pulling a full 180 on all of their DRM. They are going to allow you to play your games offline. You're going to be able to trade games in wherever you want, however you want. You can let friends borrow your games, the physical copies of the discs. They're saying it works the exact same way that the Xbox 360 does. And this is one of those things where, for video games as a whole, this is a good thing. But it's a question that's kind of, this has got a lot of controversy to it.
The biggest problem with it is they were trying to move forward with consoles and make it more PC based. And it would have been nice for publishers to get that extra money from all of it. And I think that's really my biggest problem with it is they should have stood their ground. They should have stood up to the consumers and said, this is the way it's going to be, because this is the way the next consoles are going to be, if there is a next, quote, console. But I don't know. It's good for the consumer. It's bad for the publishers.
Yeah, because of this, a lot of things that were going to be marquee features of the Xbox One have now been removed. The family sharing account is gone, and there's still a lot of controversy over what that actually was. There have been reports that it was only a 45-minute demo, and there are reports that was the full game. I can't imagine publishers will allow you to play this full game without paying for it.
Well, that's the way Microsoft was getting around to making, everything one purchase only, and it would have been nice, but... And I think Microsoft might be trying to make the whole, 45-minute demo thing up to try to make themselves look better on the whole front.
Yeah, for all we know, they leaked that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I think that's something that would be a black mark. If it came out and they were like, oh, the family share thing was actually only demos of the games that you purchased, then it would have been shitty, just like the DRM thing. And it would have been no headway to, make up for the DRM thing. So I think Microsoft is trying to let that out on their own. Personally, the whole 180. Now you can play your games, the used games. Great, good for our business. And
I think it's really good for the consumer. But in the end, the Xbox was offering something unique, and it wasn't bad. It just wasn't received. They didn't do the right research on it, and it would have grown on people having the ability to play games after you stick your disc in once, install it, and throw that disc out the window. You don't need it anymore. It's no good. It would be good for people to be able to just sit and say, well, I'm done playing this game. I'm going to sit a mile away from my Xbox and switch on the next one. And the only thing they didn't really remove, the only part that's not a 180, that stupid Kinect is still going to be stuck to the Xbox.
Yeah, that's a key design element. That's not something they're ever going to back down on or ever get rid of.
The DRM was a key design element, too.
Man, if they're going to use that to spy on me, they're going to be one unhappy.
Yeah. That's still the biggest concern right now is they can change all of this stuff and get some goodwill back, but people still are upset about the Kinect. There are a lot of privacy concerns, and it seems like one of those things where it's just like, oh, these are conspiracy theorists that are just running rampant on the internet.
It's so great.
It's not.
I mean, there's a camera in your house
with a microphone.
The camera itself doesn't bother me. I don't care if there's a camera in my house. I'm not ever really sitting direct. How often am I actually be sitting directly in front of that thing? I mean, it's going to all depend on how your house is set up. It's the microphone that's a little bit weird, because once you start understanding how that works, then you're going to see some things that might creep you out. They're saying that it only picks up Xbox On, but that doesn't make any sense because it's filtering out everything else. What I'm worried you would see was, let's say you and I are having a conversation where it's like, what do you want for dinner tonight? Well, why don't we go to Chili's? And you turn on your system and all of a sudden there's an advertisement for Chili's.
Yeah, I've been saying that forever about the cameras. They're going to use it as a marketing tool and sell it to whoever they can. You know, when you're playing your game and you got a Coke in your hand, or you got a Red Apple Ale, which Russell's drinking, and then you turn your Xbox on the next time, and on the front dashboard is buy a Coke. Buy a Red Ale at Walmart, wherever you go.
You
That's
see this,
what it's going to be used for.
You see this stuff already. One of the things that's interesting, we talked about it last week, UFC 3. That's a game that's been out for quite some time, yet when I boot that game up, there are modern advertisements in it. That's one of those things where they use those as a marketing tool now. And there was a report that came out earlier this week that the Xbox dashboard is really built for advertising. Yep. It's built to shove this down your throat. And that's all fine, well, and good. Advertise as much as you want. I don't really care. If it's advertising is not a bad thing. It's not something that should be demonized. I think product placement is a little out there because it forces people to change things in order to make sure you get that logo in the camera. Make sure that the can is facing label side out. That I don't like that because it forces you to change things. But I've never been a fan of advertising being in things because, hey, this might be something I'm interested in. I think they need to change the way they do it. I don't think on YouTube I shouldn't be forced to watch a 30-second advertisement that I can't skip for a 20-second video. That stuff I don't like. Advertising in games, I don't ever want to see a logo pop up. I don't ever want to be playing a game and all of a sudden see the Pepsi logo come on my screen. I don't like that, and it's one of those things where I bought a Kindle, and the only one I was able to purchase was the one that comes with special offers, which is advertising. I was really worried what this was going to be. When I finish a chapter of a book, before I go on to my next chapter, am I going to have to see an advertisement? Thankfully, that's not the case. All you ever see is when you turn the system to sleep and turn it back on, you see a brief advertisement as you're on the unlock screen, and that's it.
When we used to play Rainbow Six Vegas 2, I'm pretty sure it was me and Russell. Yep. That game actually had updated advertisements constantly. So when you were playing the game, different stuff you'd see, like different movies would be on the movie kiosks and stuff. So yeah, I thought that was cool. It's kind of neat that they're changing. Madden and NBA are obviously games that shill to the advertisers because they're presented by somebody every year.
Jay-Z.
So.
Everything is by Jay-Z. He programmed that game. He did mocap and programming on 2K.
The thing I love about 2K, and this is a sports game thing to me, is I go through the soundtracks and I take everything out. So on 2K13, you get Coldplay and U2 when you play my game,
which are both shit.
Yeah, but it's better than everything else.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
No, it's the When I Used to Rule the World song.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's U2 and Coldplay all day long. I
listen to sports games on mute. It's just
the best part about 2K13 is the intros they have on these. They're really cinematic, and they go through these black and white things, and they have the video playing, and it's supposed to be music. Mine are silent.
Yeah. Xbox made the right move. I mean, let's be honest. They made the right move. It's shitty for them that this is the way it had to happen. They really should have. You can't think that they didn't. For 1 second, believe that this was not going to... No, that this wasn't going to happen. You were going to have backlash. Anytime there's major change, you're going to have backlash. You can't tell me that they didn't anticipate it was going to be this bad.
Yeah, well, how can you not? I mean, people who don't just own their console just flipped, and we're like, no, never. And it definitely turned around the pre-orders a lot now.
Oh, yeah.
It's not 5-1 anymore. It's not 1-1 either, but it's not 5-1. And, Microsoft's fanboys, if you're a Microsoft fanboy, you're going to buy a 1 no matter what. But if you owned a PlayStation 3 at some point, and you had an Xbox 360, and they came out and said this, you said PlayStation 4.
Exactly. In the end, it's not about the price point, and it's not about what comes out of the box when you get it. doesn't play games. The big thing that people want is rentals. You want to go out and you say, this game, I don't know. Is this going to be absolute crap? Is this going to be the best game ever? And you don't want to spend $60 to find out that you just bought the next Shaq Fu and you're going to not be enjoying it and it's going to go collect dust. You want to go to a red box. You want to go to a game place. You want to pick it up off the shelf, spend $5, bring it home, and see if it's worth it. See if it's a 2-hour game and you just saved $55 by spending only $5. And without that ability, I don't know what they were even thinking.
I think Microsoft should have had some forward thinking beforehand on this and said, you know what, fine, you can only use your game once, but not $60 games. $40 games.
Yeah, I think this is the end game. As everything gets more digital, you're going to be able to see prices become more comparable and more competitive. Steam already does this. It's the last weekend of June, which means that the Steam Summer Sale is right around the corner, and I can only imagine how much stuff that is either full price right now or still close to it is going to be $10 in the next week.
Well, that's something they could have done as well. They could have basically made it, an Xbox Steambox style thing, but that's not what they were going to do. That's not what they were going to do. And if they did, okay, fine. They should have come out and been like, this is going to be just like Steam. You're going to get deep pocket discounts. You're going to get this. You're going to get, cheaper games. They didn't do it. They were like $60 games, $500 console, Connect. Good luck.
I think people are really apprehensive. I'm sorry, not people. Publishers are really apprehensive to do that because right now you can release your game on PC and it'll go on sale. Usually pretty quickly within the first few months. Certainly a lot quicker than you'll see it at retail. There are certain games that come out that are over a year old at this point or getting close to it. That are still a full blown $60. I think that if you go full digital, you'll probably see games drop to about $40, maybe $50, but you're going to see a less of an emphasis on sales because you want to make sure that everybody pays the maximum amount day one, because if games go on sale too early, then you lose that, and if you do it too much, then you realize that people are just going to
wait.
They'll just wait, and it's one of those things where when Defiance came out, Defiance is a $59.99 game on console and PC.
$60 on.
Yep. It might not be right now, but at the time it was. It came out on a Tuesday. On Thursday, I was able to get a coupon for half off. I only had to wait 2 days to get that game for half off the week it came out. And I could have gotten the collector's edition for maybe only like $40 or $10 more.
My biggest problem with the PC market is just the pirating. It's the bane of your system, and that's the reason PC will never be the lead, for big budget games. And Steve is going to dispute it, and he's going to say no, and I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say PC will never be the top of the line anymore because they can't make the money that consoles can.
It will be in 6 years when the consoles are over.
Well, they'll be when the consoles are PCs.
Yeah.
They're going to come out with the PlayStation box, and no, they don't have to change the name. It's just going to be the Xbox.
Yeah.
They're not going to be consoles. He's right about that. So yes.
Piracy is one of those things where there are companies that are able to fully get rid of it, but the only way to really get rid of it is to go online only. You can't pirate a Blizzard game.
No.
You can't.
Good.
You can't pirate SimCity because it's always on.
Good. Who wants to pirate SimCity?
Yeah, this is the problem though. Is always online means problems. It's not necessarily a consumer problem. You can say, "Oh, I don't have good internet. I don't have this. I don't have that." But it's not your internet you need to be worried about, really. It's theirs. SimCity was a fucking train wreck for the first 2 weeks it was out. I bought that game on release day, brought it home, installed it, played it fine the entire night. I could not play that game again for the next 8 days. Right. Could not play it.
Well, Diablo had the same issue.
Diablo had the same issue. I didn't run into it because I was quite busy that week. I bought it the day it came out, but I didn't play it until that weekend. But at least that was only 3 to 4 days. SimCity was a good almost month before it was stable.
And it was stable after they took out features like cheetah mode.
Yeah, you had to start taking out features before this game was okay to play.
And anything that actually required always being online. You couldn't trade resources between your areas or anything like that. I didn't even have the game. I watched it. I wanted SimCity. I love SimCity. SimCity's great. I've played it since 2000. The game, not the year. And It was we played it with my brothers, played it in a family. It was a game that we all could sit down and enjoy, and then release a giant killer alien robot and destroy the world. If you got it on the Super Nintendo, you can release a Bowser and destroy the world. That's the best part. You save, you destroy everything, you flip off your guys, and then you reload and pretend like you didn't just try to kill everybody.
Yeah, I love SimCity on the SNES. That's definitely my favorite one.
And then they released the online one, and it's, we're going to make this a map that's teeny, and we're going to put in, Nissan Leaf and, buy the toothpaste, and you can get special toothpaste DLC. It's just bullshit.
Wait.
My favorite game is Sim Tower, and Sim Ant, and Sim Copter. But let's be honest here, it's Sim Golf. Sim Golf is one of the marvels of game design. You had Will Wright and Sid Meier come together to make a game, and it was fucking golf. We're going to take the greatest minds of this industry and we're going to make a game, and it's a sports game. Don't ever tell me that sports games don't matter. You let two guys run wild with their imagination, and the best they can come up with was golf.
You have selected Power Drive.
Exactly.
May I suggest Feather Touch?
Lee Trevino.
Power Drive.
Lee Trevino. The ball is in the parking lot.
The ball is in the parking lot.
Thrill House.
Would you like to play again? You have selected no.
Well, it's kind of funny. The game, it's a download game for PC. It's called Game Dev Story, and they actually have a nice little Easter egg in there where if you pirated the game, which 95% of the people who downloaded it did pirate the game, you get to a certain point in the game where people start pirating your games, and you basically can't make any money. And it was kind of funny because on their website, they actually have people on asking them forum questions. How do I institute DRM? That's the reason PC will never take over.
Yeah, it's funny how games do that every once in a while. If you pirate Rhythm Heaven Fever, the Wii one, I think it's Fever, the rhythm is off. It's just slightly off, which I think it's hilarious, and I'm gonna come out and say it. I have a hacked Wii, and I did download Rhythm Heaven Fever, and I have pretty good rhythm. A little something about me. I've been drumming my entire life. I'm pretty spot on. I thought the game was broken. so I Googled it, and I was like, oh, all right. Then I got really good at the game, and I realized I can only play things on the offbeat now.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Batman Arkham Asylum. You couldn't hold your cape out and glide, and it was like 2 hours into the game. It was you'd stutter it. So you couldn't. There's one leap that you can't make like that. You need to glide awesome. The whole time, and it's like 2 hours into the game, so you never know what's wrong. They did it with Earthbound for the Super Nintendo. You'd go back and you had a non-legit copy, a pirated copy. And the game was super hard, and you might not ever know. It's the only copy you have. You didn't play it elsewhere. You have random encounters like 3 times the normal rate, and you finally get to the end, and you finally face the boss, and the game would freeze. And you go, okay, well, I'm just going to shut it off and restart. I'd have a save right there. Wiped everything out. That is a bastard evil game, and that's why you don't pirate. But the real reason why I've stopped pirating is because Steam sells things for cheap, and I think that's the savior of the PC is sales and deals. I don't pirate anymore because I can get the legitimate thing for a price that's reasonable. And it's the same reason why Xbox is ridiculous and PlayStation is ridiculous. They'll sell their disc-based games on their download service for a price that doesn't reflect what the disc is going for anymore.
Yeah, especially used games. Some of them are still like $30. The download for Uncharted is still $30.
Well, Fable 3 is like $30-something on PC.
Not too long ago, I bought a copy of Black Ops trying to help a customer for $60.
Oh my god, yeah.
Instead of buying all the download content, I bought the full game for $60 for a game that's only worth $20.
Yep. The Black Ops 1, not Black Ops 2.
Yeah,
this
not
is like
the
a month
second
ago.
One,
yeah.
No.
Yep. $50 for Black Ops. 4,000 points.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was proud of myself.
Yeah, I think piracy is getting better. I think It's one of those things where
Can't get worse.
people can say, well, if the game
birds are too much.
people can say, well, if the game was better, it wouldn't get pirated. That's never going to be the case.
No.
You know, that's just not going to happen. Like Pete, I have pretty much all but stopped downloading games. The only time I will pirate a game is if I want to just try it out, because PC games don't have demos. Games in general don't really have demos anymore.
Not anymore.
You know, and I think you need to have demos. You need to have a demo for every single game that comes out. I'm sorry, but that should be a requirement. If you're Steam, then you should be like, you know what, this game doesn't come out unless it has a demo. PlayStation, this game needs to have a demo on our network. Xbox, you need to have a demo on Xbox
I
Live.
think you have to pay to put the demos out, though.
I don't care. They need to, if they want to fight piracy, then they need to realize that people need to have a way to try games out. Rental is on the decline. Blockbusters are closing left and right. Movie galleries are closing left and right. You know, a lot of rental places are just completely gone. GameFly is pretty expensive for most people. Redbox, I've never gone to a Redbox.
$2 a night for a Redbox.
Yeah, I've know nothing about Redbox. I do rent a lot of games, but that's the benefit. You know, we work at a game store that rents games, so I can rent whatever I want. You know, whenever I want it, because we have it in stock. You know, that's the nice thing about it. But with me, I think the real reason why I've stopped pirating games for the most part is because I've become selective with what I buy. I'm not buying 10 games a month anymore, or trying to play 10 games a month. I'm picking one or two, and I'm living with my choices. If a game is shit and it was really short and I paid $60 for it, then that sucks for me, I guess. You know,
We'll trade it when it's worth value, too.
Yeah,
That's a lot of people's problem. They hold on to stuff and then they bring it in, and it's like, how come you're willing to give me $10? I paid $60 for this a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
You know, when you're done with that 5-hour game, get rid of it. Don't let it sit on your shelf unless you're going to collect it.
Yeah, like with me, like I'm a little disappointed I spent $60 on BioShock Infinite. I don't feel it was worth it. I think it'll be worth it when it's 40 or 30.
Russell does not agree.
Oh, I'm about to stab you at this point, man.
That's fine.
Oh my
Steve's
God.
opinions do not reflect everybody's opinions here.
I never said they did.
Oh, it
I
hurts.
just want to make that clear. I really enjoyed BioShock Infinite, and Russell did too.
Oh, I loved it.
And I thought the game was good all the way through. I thought the battles were enjoyable, shooting, running, anything was good. Steve shakes his head no at the mention of pretty much any of the words I've just said.
The story was good. The gameplay was shit.
Now, what exactly didn't you like about the story? It was fast paced. I know that.
No, the story is great. It's the gameplay I don't
or
like.
the gameplay. Yeah.
The game. My biggest problem is, and this is a problem with me, not necessarily probably the game. I like first-person shooters, but you have to understand something about me is I grew up on the original first-person shooters. I grew up on Doom and Quake and Unreal, where you're going really fast and it's really super tight. Like, BioShock slows it down a little bit. The other problem I have with it is I could not tell where enemies were. At one point in the game, I had to search the entire level to find this one enemy that was quite literally on the other side of the map. He bugged out and just never came any closer to me. And I was out of ammo at this point, and I can't get more ammo because I need to kill him to get ammo to carry me over to the next point. And there wasn't really a way to get to him. I had to use that skyhook and kill him with melee. Nice. And, you know, I'm low on health, and I don't have any bullets. If I die right then I'm just repeating a huge chunk of that combat because of the way the save works in that game.
Now, you played it on PC, right?
I played it on PC, yeah.
Now, I know we always talk about frame rates and stuff. Was that the issue? Is this a 30 frame game?
No.
30
honestly, I don't know what it could have been, but I didn't have any issues with frame rate.
That'll be something that also might have.
I should also mention I did play this with a controller. I did not do mouse and keyboard. I grew up with mouse and keyboard. I still prefer mouse and keyboard for first-person shooters, but only for competitive first-person shooters. I don't feel like I get a better experience playing a single-player game at my own pace with mouse and keyboard. I've kind of grown out of it a little bit, but I will always go back to it. But if I'm playing a game at my own pace and it's a single-player game, I really don't need mouse and keyboard.
Yeah. I like I was saying, I hope a lot of this might fix itself going forward, where instead of there being that big disparity between like PlayStation 3, Xbox, and PC, the frame rate issue. You know, I know the Xbox generally has a little bit better frame rates. I hope that the next consoles all run at least 60 frames plus. And I believe that's what both companies are claiming, Microsoft and Sony. But just back on track with the demo thing real quick. Sony has a nice program with PlayStation Plus, and this should carry over. Hopefully, a lot of games get an hour trial demo if you have PlayStation Plus. You get to play an hour's worth of the game, and say when you're done with it, if you choose to buy it, you get to keep your trophies that you have, and you start off at the point where you were. I think that's something that should be available on both consoles going forward.
You're downloading the whole game, though, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's going to become a space issue at that point.
Well,
it's also going to become a time issue.
Yeah.
If you're think about how big games you're going to get.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a timed trial of Gran Turismo, and that's a 30 gig download,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to get frustrated halfway through and be like, you know what? It's not worth it.
Well, a game like Gran Turismo, they'll probably put out, a track with 5 cars.
Yeah, they'll have
They won't
to.
do a time demo with that one, I don't think.
Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about the Xbox big changes before we move on?
Take off the Kinect and I might buy it.
When I get the Xbox, I'm going to go on a power strip. When I'm done playing with the Xbox, click. And we didn't touch on it, but it's not crazy to think that having a Kinect in your room, watching or hearing what you're doing, and having it reported somewhere, recorded, is nuts, because the NSA is doing that right now and reading our emails and whatnot. I'm not trying to go off on a super tangent, but it's possible.
It's bad timing.
Yeah.
I think people need to come to terms with the fact that you have never had privacy in your life.
Well, not in this day and age. Not with an iPhone.
Yeah,
not with this junk that
not
we
with
have now.
email and not with Facebook, not with anything like that. Everything you do is public record for the most part these days. You really have to kind of go off the grid to get away from things, and people aren't going to make that decision.
Well, not a video gamer.
Yeah. I just want to keep my naked body off of the interwebs.
I saw
and
something
the
on
NSA.
one of my
You
Facebook.
saw it already?
I saw something on Facebook, and it was a guy. It was one of my buddies who's he's got an Xbox, he's got a PS3. Needless to say, he had a picture, and it said basically, you're online, don't expect privacy.
I mean, it's kind of creepy, the stuff that can come up when you Google yourself. I think probably for you guys, for the most part, not much stuff probably comes up.
No.
If you Google yourself, if you Google me, I'm not going to sit here and give you my name unless you know who I am. I'm not going to do that. But if you Google me, there is a lot of stuff out there. I worked for a while as a sports writer, so you're going to be able to see a lot of my articles. You're going to see every band I've ever been in. You're going to see photos of me from the past 10 years because I've been playing music for a while. There's quite a bit of information about me out there on the internet, and it's a little strange, but thankfully I don't think I've ever really done or said anything that I'm embarrassed to have on there. Yeah, it's embarrassing to me to read some of the stuff I wrote 10 years ago. Yeah, it's pretty cringeworthy. It's pretty bad. I was a poor writer at that time. But for the most part, I'm all right with what I find about myself online. A lot of people can't say that. Think about how many just stupid photos that there are of people on Facebook. Even if you delete that photo, that's still cached somewhere out there somewhere. People are able to find it. Just like the Wayback Machine. You can type in a URL into the Wayback Machine for a website that doesn't exist anymore and still probably get a pretty decent of idea what was on it.
Well, I mean, Facebook pretty much tells you right away that any of your information,
Yep.
they can just take it and give it right away if they need to.
Yep.
So,
I use Facebook, but I don't put pictures up that I'm embarrassed of. I'm old enough to know that. I'm old enough to know. That's it. You should know. Don't put it out there. Your private life is your private life. Keep it private. It's not for someone else to see. But this is a story for another time. Actually, no, because we're talking about the Kinect. And
It's a story for now, damn it.
No,
The thing that's going to define the Kinect is that they allow you to have a amateur porn cam website where you can just make some extra money with your Kinect.
Oh, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
After a while, they would send me money to stop.
My God, stop or shave or something. You're so hairy.
Sony actually has, you can get a porn subscription through the PlayStation 3. I don't remember what it is.
Oh, really?
But you can buy a porn subscription that is an app. You can get it on your PlayStation 3.
Who pays
I don't
for
have
Who
this.
pays for this?
Yeah, really, in this day and age, don't pay for porn. You don't take anything away from this podcast today. Don't pay for porn.
I definitely advocate of pirating porn.
You don't have to pirate porn. You can watch a 30-second ad.
What's that new word? Streaming?
Hey, but those are expensive.
Oh my God! Next subject.
Backdoor Shivering Timbers, number 9.
The glitter factory. Factory.
The Glitter Factory.
Oh,
It is taken, by the way. I forgot to tell you. It is taken. I cannot have the Glitter Factory as my new PlayStation Network name.
Broke Steve's heart.
Yeah, I am.
that'd have been great.
Yeah, so I don't want anybody to know where I use that name because then they'll find me. But I wanted that as my PlayStation Network name, but it is taken. I tried a whole bunch of different combinations and just replacing all the E's with 3's and just dumb shit like that. And
Underscores everywhere.
yeah, somebody is like really into that name because they've got it locked down. We're going to move on from the Microsoft thing. That was the big thing. There has really been nothing else. So just a few things that are kind of a little bit more lighthearted. Jimmy Fallon, the host of Late Night on NBC, every year he does something called Game Week, where he brings on developers and they show off their games. And he did this year, the week after E3, or pretty close to E3. And he showed a few different things. The key things that he showed were PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And then he also showed Watch Dogs, which is Ubisoft's big game. And they had Aisha Tyler come on, who's actually a character in the game. Ubisoft really kind of pushes her. She's hosted their E3 conference for the past 2 years. And they showed off some neat things about that game. It started to turn the tide. I believe maybe it was the last podcast where I mentioned that game is something I'm really not sure about. Every time I see it, my opinion changes. Sometimes it looks terrible, and sometimes it looks really good. So I think having that out there and getting more real gameplay of it goes a long way. My thing that was interesting about this was what they decided to show. You're having the PlayStation 4 come on. Now, you have a lot of things you can show. They have some exclusive titles. They decided to show Knack, which for all intents and purposes is a game marketed towards...
System seller.
It's marketed towards a younger audience. Obviously, the people that are kind of in the know are going to play this game regardless because they know that it comes from the same pedigree as the games they played when they were younger, like Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Crash Bandicoot. This is the next evolution. So you're going to attract an older audience, but you're also going to attract the younger audience because this is a game that parents can buy for their kids. So they don't show Infamous, they don't show Killzone, they show Knack, which is probably the most video game that they have to offer. It's a game where you're just kind of doing, just crazy stuff. It's not realistic in the least bit. It's not trying to be. It's not trying to tell a deep story. It's a game that everybody can play. Whereas, I think Microsoft showed...
They showed Forza and Killer Instinct.
Okay, so that's an interesting choice. I figured they were going to come out with Titanfall and show that.
No, apparently the Jimmy does not like Titanfall.
The Jimmy?
The Jimmy. I don't like Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon's great.
I love Jimmy Fallon.
You're going to push me into a rant about why Fever Pitch is one of the greatest movies of all time.
I didn't say he's not a bad actor. I don't know.
He's a bad actor. But he's still funny.
I think he's kind of a tool. There's at one point he's doing the Forza 4, and whoever they brought in for the Xbox One is talking about it. And he says, "Oh, are those sounds from the McLaren I'm driving? Are those from the actual car?" "Oh, yes, of course, Jimmy Fallon. Those are taken from the actual car." Fucking assholes. It's a 5-minute commercial you put into your show instead of actually being like a legitimate game week where it might be interesting to watch.
I think it's great that games are in the mainstream like that. That's a show that's watched by millions of people.
Yeah.
That's nice to see.
Going back, I want to go back to Knack for a minute. I pre-ordered my PlayStation 4 this week, and I had to call Amazon to make sure they didn't bounce my checkbook at that moment. So that's a different story, but an entertaining one anyways. I pre-ordered the Battlefield 4 combo pack one, and I saved $10 on my PlayStation Plus.
Ooh.
And I'll plan on buying 2 other games at launch. I will buy Knack. Steve's going to have to come over to my house to play it because he's not going to buy one. And I haven't figured out what my third game is. It's probably going to be Madden because I'm a freak. And
if I was buying the system at launch, I would get Battlefield 4, I would get Knack, and maybe I probably wouldn't get a third game.
Watch Dogs.
Watch Dogs is going to be better on PC.
Yeah, I guess.
It's going to be better on PC.
Yeah, last year at E3 when they first showed Watch Dogs, last year, Steve went nuts for it, and I said this game looks like crap. This year, it's kind of changed tone. I'm like, hey, this kind of looks neat, and Steve's like, this looks like shit. And then I guess this demo made it look better for him.
It's a
But
good impression.
it was funny because last year I was like, this game looks stupid. I'm not really into the whole because it's a spying thing. It's kind of intrusive. It's like the Xbox. It's an intrusive game. It's someone stealing everything from everybody that he can, and it does look kind of cool. The second screen thing, I think that turned Steve off a lot when they showed some of that, but it looks better to me this year than last year.
I don't want to have to fiddle around with multiple devices just to play a game. The controller is enough.
Yeah.
I don't need to have my attention drawn elsewhere.
Well, that's a question. Do you have to have a second screen to be able to play this game?
Nobody has said anything.
That's
Do
a
you
good
have to
question.
have any of this? In Battlefield 4, you're going to be able to have matches where nobody is commander?
Probably.
It makes sense, obviously, to do that, but how far are they going with this?
Commander role is probably going to be a, if you have a tablet or you're sitting there with someone who has a tablet, you get to put in for it, and then it's just randomly drawn who is the commander, most likely. That's kind of like how it was on MAG. You got...
Yeah, that is true.
You had, like, points, and who had, you got to put in for it, and whoever's been the commander longer, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, for the Fallon Game Week. All right.
Well,
Fine, cut me off.
Yeah, I'm going to cut you off. You're going to end the thing. You don't want to talk about the Xbox. You don't want to talk about the Wii U. Reggie was there.
Wait, he played the Wii U?
He played the Wii U.
Huh?
That's a system.
That is a legitimate system.
They have games coming out for the Wii U.
Yes.
Oh.
And games that are already out.
Let me guess, it's another Mario side-scroller.
It is. Anyways, what I'm
No,
talking
it's
about
top-down.
The only
top-down Mario?
interesting... It's the Legend of Zelda with Mario in it. Now,
Mario
the only
Combat Basketball.
other interesting thing about the Xbox One...
It's Mario Hoops Round 3.
Yes, Mario Hoops. That's what...
Travesty.
The Xbox One had the Killer Instinct, and the only interesting thing they added to it, and they mentioned it, and I hope they include it in other games, in the middle of a matchmaking online, as you're fighting somebody else, it is setting up your next match, which I think is going to be interesting, so you could continuously play without having to wait, and hopefully not get stuck with the 5-year-old because your skills are lame.
That's something that every fighting game needs to have. But my worry with every fighting game online is the lag. There has never been decent netcode for a fighting game outside of I never had any problems playing the original BlazBlue on Xbox Live.
Nice.
That's the only fighting game I can ever think of that I didn't have a problem with online.
I mean, Microsoft, if this comes true in the cloud and their whole, we have 300,000 servers now, if that comes true, then you better play right. Because if it doesn't, those fighting game fans are not going to come back for
what are those
anymore.
1 billion transistors doing?
They're transisting.
Yeah.
So on the Wii U, they showed Wario, Game & Wario there, and
Which is smart. It was coming out that week.
yeah, and the reviews are pretty awful for it, but I think it looks like any traditional Wario game, or any new Wario game, full of many games. Looks like you could have some fun. Looks like it'd be a great $30 game and not a great buy at $60. But then
It's only $40.
$40.
Oh,
It's a $40 game.
well, apparently I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah. The other thing they showed was the new Mario game, and something about it keeps getting me here. It's all cat suits. All they talk is a cat suit. We got a new cat suit for you, cat suit for you. It's like they should have Oprah doing it.
If my time on Reddit has told me anything, people fucking love cats. Go to reddit.com/r/aw, and it's just cat photos.
I love cats.
Exactly. And the other thing we glossed over was the Call of Duty Ghost they showed on one of
Fuck
the
Call of Duty. Nobody gives a shit about Call of Duty.
Exactly.
This really could be the end of Call of Duty. With Titanfall coming out, if Titanfall is good, Titanfall itself, it's not going to be Battlefield. Titanfall will kill Call of Duty.
Titanfall is the game of the year.
You're the game of the year.
Sorry.
Anyways, moral of the story with the Call of Duty, to go back to what we were talking about, their big thing is that you're in San Francisco with your doggy dog, and something happened to San Francisco. But they're not going to tell you what happened to San Francisco. But let me guess, it's Call of Duty, a nuclear bomb exploded, or terrorists sabotage a nuclear plant. It's nuclear, they're a terrorist, it's Call of Duty. You're not going to change, unless you're in the future with a dog that's actually a dog robot named Riley, which is a stupid name for a dog.
Stupid name for anyone.
Riley seems to be a big name. Riley was Ellie's friend in Last of Us. Riley is the name of Ellie's friend in Last of Us.
Yeah, congratulations.
She is her only
Best
friend.
friend, yeah.
And Riley is also the name of Topanga's and
Oh my God.
and whatchamacallit's son or daughter on Girl Meets World, the new show coming from the Disney Channel that I can't wait for. What the hell is his Corey Matthews? That's it. I marathoned every season of Boy Meets World earlier this year. I cannot wait for Girl Meets World.
Do you have problems? Did you guys?
Feeny,
Oh my God.
Feeny,
Awesome.
Mr. Feeny.
Did you guys see the Jimmy Fallon Do Not Game thing he did one of the nights?
I don't even watch Jimmy Fallon.
I don't either, but I watched all the videos. I got ready for this. I prepared.
I actually watch Jimmy Fallon. I quite like his show.
He brought out Captain Novolin for the Super Nintendo, which is a series of games published by the same company that were educational, health-related games. Captain Novolin, like another game they released, he has diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and you need to make sure your blood glucose doesn't go too high or too low, or you die. And that was an awful game, and that's why it was in the section called Do Not Game.
Diabetes.
But
that is a game that hits close to home for a lot of gamers.
I was about to say, so that's as realistic as it gets.
they had 4 games. 2 of them were about diabetes, one of them about asthma, and the other one was
Prostate cancer.
No, it was no.
The trifecta.
No, it was about tobacco, the evils of tobacco, and you had a miniature doctor in you fighting off the things. Plus,
You had a miniature doctor in you. This goes back to the prostate cancer.
Exactly. Plus, on top of that, the tobacco company went by and injected microbots to kill the miniature doctor.
Oh God, what the hell game? That's Binary Domain. It all comes back full circle.
It was Rex Ronan. Rex Ronan, experimental surgeon. I mean, that just sounds awesome.
Wait, is this a real game?
It's a real game.
I want this game.
It's a Super Nintendo game. It's one of the 4
Is it
educational
rare?
games. They're all rare.
Oh, really?
I mean, Captain Novolin's like a $40 game.
Jesus, I want this game now.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I want. I've heard of Captain Novolin, but I've never heard of Rex, whatever the hell you said. I want that game.
It has to be good, right? With that name, it's like McAllister Brown, Private Eye.
Yeah, that is Pete's fictional character that he's never done anything with. But if Pete ever writes a book, it's going to be
just our-
McAllister Brown, Private Eye.
Yeah, I mean, you in the book, it's important. Any character who mentions him, it's McAllister Brown, Private Eye. You cannot do half of a name. Private Eye's part of his name.
I want to bring up a news topic, and I'm going to seem like the creeper of the group here because you guys are, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you see that I'm kind of into cosplaying girls, and
You like
they
to
are what they
cosplay as
are.
girls?
Here's a funny article I saw, and this
God.
is from Reddit. This is from Kotaku. Someone obviously, sadly, I'm not going to say their name or anything, but there was an article on Kotaku about cosplayers, and they brought up the fact that cosplayers now are killing cosplay because the only cosplayers you ever see are the attractive cosplayers. You don't get to see, the dumpy guys, the dumpy girls. You get to see, Jessica Negri and other famous
Who looks like she's made out of cement. I'm sorry, but she looks.
Think what you want, but she's a pretty girl, and she takes a lot of the headlines from it. And I don't know if you guys even have any like concern about her or anything like that. I just thought it was kind of funny that someone wrote an article, and this was a long one, especially for Kotaku. They're usually like short articles with written by fans. Yeah, no, this would be a 20-page article, if it was like on paper, and she's just going into depth on it, and I'm just like, don't be so butthurt about it. If you like cosplay, then go cosplay. Go do what you want. Don't get mad because someone else gets shown. If you make a good costume, you don't have to be a pretty girl.
No, I was at PAX East, and Jessica was there, and there was actually a lot of controversy. This was not...
Yeah, that was the year she got kicked out, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Had to come back with a hoodie on.
Pop chainsaw.
Exactly, but I saw pictures of it online afterwards. There was a Mass Effect team with Morden. If you're not familiar, he's an alien with a not exactly human-like head and less than a full hand of fingers. And there was some really good Mass Effect cosplay, and I bet you Morden was probably ugly as sin, but his picture made it. You can't be a character you're not a good fit for. Unfortunately, if you're a heavy guy like the all of us here are, there's not a lot of main characters that are running around, in the zombie apocalypse trying to catch their breath and
one.
shoot somebody.
Well, I mean,
Cardio.
if they made a game with the 7 dwarfs, me and you could do something in that.
You could be a bloater.
Yeah, we could. It's
exactly.
If I was ever to cosplay, everybody knows here who I would be.
I have no idea.
Who would I be?
You would be Nolan North.
I would be. Yes, oh my god!
You would cosplay as Nolan North.
That should be Nolan North.
You would be Nolan North from his time on Law and Order.
Yes. But yeah, I would be Drake. You know what? I can't pull it off, and I'm never gonna do it. Sorry.
Yeah, cosplay does not appeal to me whatsoever. I can appreciate the time put into creating these outfits, but it's nothing I would ever do. I would just feel so awkward doing it. It's nothing I've ever thought about. It's nothing that just interests me. I don't look at pictures of it. I can appreciate the craftsmanship, but that's about it. It's just not for me.
Is most of these people make these things by hand. It's not like people make these forms.
This is what theater kids do after they graduate, and the only job they get is Starbucks.
Yeah, and if you could do it, good, do it. Be a fan. Go to PAX and dress up as you want, no matter who you look like. But don't get jaded and don't get sad because your picture's not online.
Be better.
Yeah. Make a better costume. Like I said,
I see a lot of Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters are popular.
Oh my God, that'd be awesome.
Get pictured.
Well, there are 4 of us.
We could be the Ghostbusters now because the Ghostbusters all are a bunch of fatties.
Yes. I call Dan Aykroyd. He's good. Fat. I gotta put on some glasses.
I get to be Ernie Hudson.
No, I get to be Ernie Hudson. I get to be the lady with the Long Island accent that answers the phones.
You've got to get the red glasses.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Russell, you're nobody.
I'll be the one no one's talking about because I have no clue what the names of anyone's are.
You haven't watched Ghostbusters?
You get to be the director.
You can be Egon.
I can be the director?
Yeah.
I could be Peter, the Ghostbuster, with the same name.
You can be Slimer.
Yeah. Anyways, moral of the story is Ghostbusters usually make it on, and if you have the skill to make a pack that looks good, you can buy a jumpsuit, get that shit sewn on. The jumpsuits are pretty much pre-made. They're not anything special. You make a good pack, you get featured. You can be ugly as sin once again, and end up on a picture somewhere that people say, "Wow, that was good." You can't just half-ass it. You can't just full-ass it. You have to go all out. And
no, you can't. If you full-ass it, then
you'll definitely get front page.
I don't know how much ass.
It.
This is a question to you, the viewer. Is half-ass
listener?
Is the half? You can view this on YouTube. It's just a static picture. Anyways, is half of ass the half that is an ass? Is that the good half or the bad half? I think a full ass is a full bad thing.
Before we get off this topic, I have to bring something up. This is something that's actually I'm not trying to be humorous with this. I did not realize this until just now. I just said that I would never cosplay. I would have no interest of ever dressing up like a video game character, a comic book character. And I just looked down at my leg and I realized I have a comic book themed tattoo.
Yep.
I'm willing to get that put on my body for the rest of my life. Yet I won't dress up at a convention. Now, granted, the tattoo I have from a distance, you would have no idea what it is. I have, for those that are interested, I have the Why the Last Man. I have the Why the Last Man logo tattooed on my leg. I mean, I have movie tattoos right above that. I have the numbers that were written on Jake Gyllenhaal's arm in Donnie Darko. So I have things from pop culture on me for the rest of my life. Yet I still am not willing to put on a Frank the Bunny suit from Donnie Darko and go to a convention.
I guarantee you would dress up like Old Man Yorick.
Yeah.
Jump out the window.
I'll dress up like Hero. People listening have no idea what we're talking about.
I don't have any idea what we're talking about.
Go check it out at your local comic book shop. I'm sure you can buy the first issue for $1.
I forced Chris to read Why the Last Man, and I think he's happy that he did.
I did. I am, definitely. I read the whole thing in about a week.
Yeah.
10 books.
Yep, it's wonderful. Next topic. Microsoft is removing the fees to patch your game on Xbox Live. They actually did this in April and did not tell anybody, and the news did not break until this past week and a half. This would obviously have rectified the situation that Phil Fish saw himself in, where he was charged an exorbitant amount of money to patch his game. Tim Schafer was once quoted as saying that they wanted $40,000 to patch one of his games. Here's the thing, though. The Xbox 360 is on the way out. this does not cover the Xbox One. They did not say if this is on the, part of Xbox One or not. You would hope that it is, but I have a feeling that it's not.
The problem with it is they're not going to have any indie games anyways.
They'll still get indie games. I mean,
they're going to get the major ones. You're going to get big ones. You're going to get Minecraft. You're going to get that game below they're going to come out with. You're not going to get the little guys, though, really, I don't think. Unless Microsoft goes to them and says, we'll publish your game for free. You'll be Microsoft published.
Well, they're still saying that, I believe I might get this wrong, but if you want to publish an independent game, you have to have X number of games available at retail. So if this is your first game, then you're out of luck. You know, and you look at certain games. There have been some weird deals. Like Bastion was Warner Brothers, wasn't it?
I think it was published
and that was
by
their
Microsoft.
first game. Right?
Yeah, that was their first game as that team. You know, so they had to go to Warner Brothers kind of got more of a foothold into video games. You know, they have NetherRealm, which is Mortal Kombat. So I mean, they have precedence. But I mean, you're going to see people just going wherever they can to get this, and you're starting to see new publishers rise. A year ago, nobody was talking about Deep Silver. Now Deep Silver is all over the place. And you're going to see that happen. You're going to see a lot of new names, especially as companies close. And this is something I probably should have brought up beforehand and let everybody else know, because I don't know if you guys follow this or not, but one of the most beloved developers and publishers in the world is risking losing everything. Atlas, their parent company, is facing bankruptcy.
Wow.
They are... No, not from somewhere. They're just a holding company. They're just a traditional business company. They are facing bankruptcy. You could very well see all of the Atlas titles go elsewhere. You know, who picks those up? You know, where does Persona go? You know, where does Shin Megami Tensei, just the traditional one, go? Especially because they have a new title that's coming out soon for the 3DS. Yeah. You know, people are clamoring for Persona 5. This could very well be the nail in the coffin for that. If Atlas dies and nobody picks it up, because let's face it, those games don't sell that well outside of Japan, what happens?
Well, Dark Souls crushed. Dark Souls was
this is an Atlas. Yeah, that's the thing.
That's from
Atlas is always those niche titles. Catherine.
Well, Catherine's actually their number one selling game in the States.
Yeah.
If I remember right.
Yeah.
For the big
that was just because of the
cover.
PS3 cover and the Xbox cover.
It was all about getting the boxer shorts and body pillow.
I have that.
I know you have that.
In the pizza box.
The pizza box.
Yeah.
Catherine was good, but let's be honest, that's not a game that's selling millions of copies.
Well, it had like Radiant Historia that came out that was supposed to be fantastic.
Yep.
And I played like 3 minutes of it, even though I own it, because I am the lazy gamer. There's no time. You're an adult. You got to do stuff. Life is awful. Now we got to come here and do a podcast. This is my game time.
We're just going to end this podcast with us shooting ourselves. I just hope, for the sake, I wish I could go more in depth on this story. I don't think anybody has the information yet. We'll see how things go. I hope that Atlas sticks around. Somebody needs to bail them out, because it's a company that has always done right by fans for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, the hope would be, I guess, maybe Squeenix would grab them.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, I'd want an RPG powerhouse to have these guys, because if I don't want them turning them into everything else.
I'd rather see Sony take them or Nintendo take them.
Yeah,
I think that would be better. Microsoft, I mean, they are not associated with Microsoft in the least bit. Their premier franchises have never seen the light of day on anything to do with Microsoft.
Doesn't NIS publish the same thing?
Yes, Nippon Ichi Software. They are they're the same kind of company. And this dates back to a company that we're probably familiar. We should all be familiar with, Working Designs. Big thing with Working Designs, where they went on a limb and translated these games and brought them over to American audiences. They didn't sell, which is why they're worth a ton of money right now, because they didn't make that many copies. But somebody has to do it, and Atlas has been doing it for a long time. I can't imagine not being able to play Persona because I don't understand the language. That's a game it's number 2 on my all-time favorite game list.
They actually made one of my favorite games, which was Demon's Souls.
Yeah.
It's not like I'll ever see that again.
I think Atlas published it. They published it. Yeah. So I mean, that wouldn't be you wouldn't have to worry about that. You're worrying about the actual Atlas games. You're worrying about Persona, Shin Megami Tensei, and whatever else they have up their sleeve. It just worries me that people aren't willing to translate games, and it's just kind of something that's I'm not happy with. And I know we're still talking about news, but I think this would be the best way to talk about it. I had saved this for the end of the show. We're talking about games being translated. I want to talk about region-free games. They announced that with the Xbox DRM removal, that system will become region-free. For the most part, systems really should be region-free. It's weird because there is obviously demand for games that don't come out in our country. If there wasn't, then we wouldn't have a Japanese section on the PlayStation Network. Websites like PlayAsia wouldn't really be around. There is enough demand that there's real money to be made. Why can't you just buy games? Why do I have to go through a third party? I should be able to have a legitimate store that Sony has, or Microsoft has, or Nintendo has, where I can order their game online and I get the Japanese game.
It's all about the money.
It's licensing fees.
If I'm in Australia, I am paying more money than if I'm in America. It's the way it is. It's if they can make an extra dollar, they will throw up whatever roadblock and make whatever pain in the ass they can, just so the money keeps flowing.
It's kind of like the PlayStation Network store, what Steve's talking about with the Sony side, or the American side and the Japanese side. The Japanese store and the PlayStation 1 section is amazing. You can get basically all the classics. You can't get them here. They have like the TurboGrafx games that are available over there. You get a lot more of them. I think it really has to do with licensing fees and who gets paid for what. Sadly, that's the country we live in. Everybody's got to get paid.
I just wish more games would get translated. I know the guys from 8.4 do a lot of work. They translate a lot of games into English and translate a lot of English games into Japanese. I think they might have done Soul Sacrifice. I know they've done some big titles, but it's just sucks. There are games out there that are in another language that I want to play, and I don't have legitimate means to go about getting them. I have to go through eBay, which, yeah, it's legitimate. It's not like it's illegal or anything, but nobody's getting any money for that.
Yeah.
Some guy is getting some money for that. Atlas isn't getting that money, or NIS isn't getting that money. Sony's not getting that money. Microsoft's not getting that money. The people that made the game aren't getting the money, and they should be. And, maybe that would promote more translation. Maybe that would promote more global release of games.
Well, the PSP suffers from that a lot, because a lot of people were like, oh, the PSP's terrible in this country. You didn't get the stuff that made it incredibly popular in Japan. There's so many great RPGs that are never going to be
Monster Hunter, right?
No, just tons of RPGs that just were never released. I mean, the PSP's seen a ton of releases in Japan this year that just aren't going to come here because there's no translation company like Working Designs around anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Nice does some, but not enough. I mean, I buy Working Designs games. Look at the cover of it. It says Working Designs. I buy it. I know it's worth money. That's the way I just buy their games. But yeah, they really need to bring more stuff over. They hold stuff back a lot in Japan.
I think that if Sony is going to allow you to have multiple accounts on your system, I have a Japanese account, I have an American account, then I should be able to access those games no matter what. I can log into my American account and play the games I bought on my Japanese store, but I can't do that on my Vita. I can play PS1 games on my Vita, but not any of the Japanese ones that I purchased. I paid money for those games. Sony got that money because it's purchased through their store. It's not like I purchased it anywhere else. Yes, I had to buy the yen points through. I went through PlayAsia, but they're still getting that. They're still getting that. It's just you could say, well, no, PlayAsia got that money. That's no different than me going to Rite Aid and buying a PSN card. That doesn't matter. They still got my money, yet I can't play it on a system I own.
Yeah. Oh, that's because there's only one profile in a Vita, and that needs to change.
But if you're going to allow people to have more than one profile total, then it shouldn't matter if you're playing it on your handheld or on your console.
Yeah.
Next up, last for news, is the PlayStation 4. We found out this week that the reason why it hit $400 and not $500 is because they took the camera out. If you remember at the reveal of the PlayStation 4, they showed that camera front and center. It's that little black kind of horizontal bar. It's got two lenses in it, and it's non-existent now. It's going to be a $59.99 add-on, and the problem with that is that why are people going to buy it if nobody's developing for it? And nobody's going to develop for it because nobody's going to buy it. So you've created this weird product that you put time and effort into that may end up going absolutely nowhere.
I don't really know much about it, the whole story. Steve brought it up a couple days ago to me, and you know, I kind of want the camera just so I can have it. That's just me, but other than that, I don't see the point of it. They did show some kind of neat things with it at E3, where they had these little like robot guys, and they were inside the controller, and the camera actually showed it, and you'd like shoot them out of the controller at stuff, and you could suck them up like it was a vacuum cleaner. But that's the only thing I ever saw in it. They could have probably just done that with an iToy as well. I mean, maybe they'll change it into the PlayStation 4 iToy. Who knows?
And you know, it's history repeating itself. It goes all the way back. Super Nintendo had the Super Game Boy, and only a handful of games, and it wasn't even widely announced or written on the boxes, but a handful of games took special advantage of the Super Game Boy, brought full color in where it could have just been 4 or 6 color, whatever they did, had full borders, the whole nine there, and it died because nobody bought the Super Game Boy, because nobody knew the games were being published, and nobody published games because nobody bought the Super Game Boy. And if you don't include something, or at least have an incentive for the companies to use it, it'll sit there and die too.
That's pretty much it for news this week. You know, not much happened over the past couple of weeks, so I don't know if there's anything else anybody wants to talk about.
You want to talk about Saints Row 4 in Australia?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I don't know if you guys know, Australia's really, really tough on what they bring into their country, especially with violent video games.
Much like Germany was.
Yes.
They have changed now.
And Saints Row 4 is basically going to be banned in Australia as of right now. They've deemed it basically not too violent, but violence that does not... How did they put it? Violence does not progress the story. It's just violence for violence. Now, I don't know how you guys feel about violence in games. The way they approach Saints Row is it's kind of quirky and fun, and you know, you're the president of the United States flying around kicking the shit out of people, and it's not that's bad, but you know, beating some guy to death with a 6-foot purple dildo, I don't, you know, it's something like that. Like Russell thinks it's funny. Why is it there? Why do you need it? Why not a baseball bat?
Well, it's like RoboCop. Everything I reference is in the 80s and early 90s, but RoboCop was ultra-violence, and that was to show a point, to show satire and whatnot, and I just said that out loud, and I realized Saints Row is not about satire. Saints Row is just a stupid game trying to make sales.
No, there is more to Saints Row than people give it credit for. Yeah. Saints Row very much is satire. It's satire of how serious those kinds of games got. Even their own games, Saints Row 1 and 2 were trying to be as serious as possible. Yeah. You know, Grand Theft Auto has always been super serious, despite the fact that it's had that goofy kind of quirky side to it. Saints Row 3 was a huge piece of satire on the video game industry. You can't tell me that it wasn't. Mm-hmm. You know, and Saints Row 4, it's not. It is a goofy kind of just dumb game, but the whole premise of the game is that it takes place in this virtual reality simulator. So I mean, you take everything with a grain of salt, but they're just giving you tools to just do whatever you want with. You know, that's the thing.
My biggest problem trying to defend it is you got to look at it the point that the way they're wording it, violence is there to progress the story. If you were playing The Last of Us and Ellie stabs that guy to death like crazy, I mean, if that's taken out of the game, that does not progress the story. Do you need a 6-foot dildo to progress the story?
Sometimes.
But I don't know. You gotta look at the way they want to they want the stuff in their country. If they say no, they have the right to say no, and you have the right to import the game if you so choose to.
It comes to a question of censorship. Obviously, they don't have the same rights we have in this country. You know, we kind of take for granted our First Amendment sometimes, and we forget to realize that, you know, not everybody has that. Not everybody has the freedom to say whatever they want and to purchase whatever they want, and, you know,
to say what they want.
You know, and that's an American developer. They can do whatever they want because they're protected by free speech, but they're not protected by that in other countries. And, you know, sometimes it is a little goofy and it's a little silly to sit here and think about that. And to me, as someone who's, you know, big into music, Cannibal Corpse, a very famous American death metal band, they were banned from playing certain songs in Germany due to lyrical content. you have to understand something about Cannibal Corpse is if you just look at them, just a glancing eye, they're very intimidating looking guys. They look like they mean business, but you have to realize that all of those lyrics are they're not meant to be taken seriously. They're not realistic in the slightest. They're no worse than zombie movies. Yeah, they talk about some gnarly stuff in Cannibal Corpse lyrics. They have a song called Stripped, Raped, and Strangled. They have a song called Fucked with a Knife. They have a song called I Come Blood. There is some
really
stuff,
wholesome songs there.
Yeah,
family driving road trip songs.
Yeah, but there have been some terrible things in movies that have been fine. You have to take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, when it comes to it just being kind of, out there for the point of being out there, I get it. So there are some things that people don't want to be representative of what their pop culture is. Every country has their own pop culture. If Australia doesn't want this to be part of their pop culture lexicon, they have the right to do that. You might not agree with it, but they have the right to do it.
Everybody has the right to disagree, and it's a big problem in this country is that we say things and we put stuff on Facebook where if you're in another country, they'd throw you in jail.
Yeah.
We take a lot of stuff for way too granted. Oh, I've got rights. You have rights because you're here. You don't have rights in other countries like we have rights. You don't get to do what you want. We get away with a lot in this country, and people need to really take advantage. I mean, not take advantage of it, but realize it.
Take advantage of the system. Bleed it for everything you can.
Well, the freedoms you have, most countries don't have. That's just a fact. A lot of the stuff you say, you put stuff like that on Facebook about your government, the government will come to your house in other countries.
Cut your damn hands off.
Yeah. Don't be like that,
Yeah, I guess they're supposed to be releasing now they're reworking it to make it more Australian friendly. Which I don't know exactly what that means if you're going to have a giant 6-foot kangaroo to beat people with. I hope there's no Australian listeners. I'm sorry. The whole game's going to be upside down.
The biggest problem with the game is that the whole controversy behind this is Australia actually put out a rating for this game, but they're not giving it to it. They're banning it. That's the problem. I mean, we kind of skipped over that part. They have an 18+ rating that says children can't buy it. It's against the law.
And it's new. They didn't have
new.
this
is
for quite
very
some time.
New. Yeah. And there are games that have been given the rating, and this isn't one. They're just saying no, and they have the right to. They did it with Manhunt 2 in this country. And that game came out after they fixed it, and it was bad.
They fucking ruined that game.
There have been movies and games and just anything that have incredibly disturbing content in it. And it's one of those things where it's like, as a human on this planet, as an adult on this planet, you should have the right to experience whatever media you want. It's regardless of country, but you don't have that. Unfortunately, you don't have that right a lot of the times, and it's a shame, but you have to deal with it. There are things in this country that are illegal, and they're illegal for a good reason. There is it draws. Legality is a fine line. Why is it okay for me to look at murder on television, but you can't see nudity on television? Why is it okay for me to see this and not this? It comes down to that. And I think this is probably a good time to end this. Our super serious political discussion will be a new ongoing feature each and every podcast where we just go off on something completely...
Yes. It all has to start from a 6-foot purple dildo. But from there, the tangents
as all good things in life do.
All good stories start with that.
Exactly.
It's where the information spews.
Is there anything else anybody wants to get into?
No.
All right. Well, we want to thank you guys for listening to the Pixel FM podcast. As you can tell, much shorter than the last time, and we're gonna hope to have it around this length, for future episodes. So thank you for listening. You can check us out on YouTube, Pixel FM podcast. You can subscribe to us there. We're also on Facebook now, and we're always gonna put up the links to the show. We try and get it out as quickly as possible. We record these on Saturday nights, so hopefully by the middle of next week, depends on how fast I can edit these things. We'll have it out to you. So subscribe, check us out, and thanks for joining us. We hope you guys have a good night. Thanks for listening.